So yeah, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to
Yes.
Titi's Chronicles. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Morning, Ruben. Morning. So we haven't recorded one for this pod since right when COVID started. So
Yeah.
I want to say that was back in March, Ruben, you think? Yeah, March and I had one. And then prior to that, we did one. But pretty much went radio silent for a lot of different reasons. And one of them being anxiety. And that's what we chose as the topic for today, because I didn't know if I was ever going to come back and record a pod, because I was in such a dark place that I felt like I would probably have nothing to say and I would never do this again.
Yeah.
And what better way to start than the culprit for me actually not wanting to? I was chatting with you a little bit yesterday, and I said I didn't know where to start. And usually I don't do a whole lot of prep for this because I want it to be as natural as possible without it being rehearsed. And you said to me that you had anxiety about coming in today to talk about anxiety. And I was like, it's ironic, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what a perfect...
Daily life.
Right?
Yeah.
If daily?
Yeah.
And I was like, what a perfect starting point. I mentioned to you that I wanted to do this and that the topic would be anxiety, and you said you would love to come on.
Yeah.
To what extent? I mean, like, I don't know. I didn't ask, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was just like, what is it? So daily?
Yeah, it's probably daily. I think it's in my daily life. I like to consider it like like symptom of adulthood.
Wow.
I feel like I inherited it somehow over the last like maybe 3 to 4 years. But yeah, I think it's like pretty like present in my everyday life in terms of just small things.
Right.
Like yesterday we were in the car on the way to an appointment, and I was just thinking about coming in today, and I was like, okay, I have to wake up early. What time should I wake up? What are we gonna do tonight? And then it's just like a little checklist in my head, and then it gives me like, then I have to like kind of check out, and Han's like, are you okay? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Just going through like a mental checklist in my mind.
Right.
And then as soon as I do something, I'm fine. It's
Okay.
just like the lead up to something is
Okay.
where I get anxiety. With the pandemic, I think
Yeah.
I have even higher anxiety than I was aware of.
Right.
I'm a pretty social person. I think I have a little bit of social anxiety when I'm in like new settings now.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's like kind of present in all aspects of my life. Work, home, like family, you name it.
So when we say anxiety, and we touched bases on this a little bit with me and Ruben in our pod about depression. Was that our topic? Depression and anxiety kind of go hand in hand. And there are different levels to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I kind of associate anxiety with like nervousness, you know? What is it? Right around the start of the pandemic, it was fine. We had shut down our shop for about 2.5 months. And we took it day by day. We didn't know what was going to happen or when it was going to end. And in the beginning, we were really almost naive, I guess,
Yeah.
to how bad everything was. And I said things in a joking manner because I didn't know how bad it was or how bad it was going to be. Nobody knew,
Yeah.
really, you know? So, it was fine. I was walking every day. I did a little bit of running, and I was listening to a lot of podcasts because I had the time to go on these really long walks,
Yeah.
right? And it was fine. And then it wasn't until probably like I would say like after the first initial month of the lockdown, when everything got shut down and it was the stay-at-home order, everyone had to stay home, I started to get kind of anxious.
Yeah.
And then I think one of my triggers, and it's really important to recognize what your triggers are so that you could
Kind of control it.
control
a little
it.
bit. Yeah.
Exactly. And I didn't recognize it at the time. Things were just coming at me, and and then it started to kind of get out of control.
Yeah.
So after about 2.5 months, towards the end of that stay-at-home order, I found myself not wanting to exercise. So I stopped, which is bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Exercise makes you feel good too.
Absolutely. So I stopped working out, and I started becoming really reclusive. I wasn't talking to people within the household. I wasn't contacting friends. And I lost sort of, I felt like I lost my support system.
Yeah.
And I did it myself. I took myself away from that. Like, you could easily call somebody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to, because I just felt like, okay, I just started to close off from everybody. When we decided to open up shop again, it was 2.5 months later, it was fine. I thought that I was going to come back to just silence, because I was like, what are people shopping for furniture for?
Yeah, it was really surprising that
Right?
so busy.
It was extremely busy. And as it turns out, because everyone had to stay at home and they couldn't go anywhere, they wanted to make their home habitable and comfortable.
Yeah.
And so they were purchasing all these things so that they could be comfortable at home. So here we were, extremely busy, shorthanded, and the demand was high, but there was no supply.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, things shut down, people weren't working, shipments weren't coming in, and it was just all these things, you know? And so I started to stress out.
Yeah.
So work was my first trigger. I started to stress out because of work. And stress is pretty normal, and it's sad that it's normal for us.
I know, right?
Right? And then after that, it was, so we had talked about our new relationships.
Yeah.
So here we are, John and I were in a new relationship, and we couldn't see each other.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Right?
Yeah.
Couldn't see each other. And it's really hard when I'm busy, I don't like to talk on the phone. I don't even like to talk on the phone, period. I
Yeah.
prefer text message, get to the point. You can't detect tone via text message. So we get in these fat arguments, right?
Text message arguments are the worst.
Right?
You think someone's saying something terrible,
Right.
and they're actually just very cool about it.
And so I was like, I couldn't detect tone. So here I was, like, freaking, like, going off at him. I was like, dude, I'm not even mad right now, you know? So then there was that. And then, you know, and then there was other things with family where I wasn't able to see my nephews, whom I really
Yeah.
love, you know, and other things that I'm not allowed to talk about right now, but it really affected me.
Yeah.
It really affected me, and COVID just wasn't helping. It just
Yeah.
sort of accentuated everything.
Yeah.
So then it was back to back, all these different triggers that I am now recounting, because at the time I was like, I didn't know what it was. And it spun so out of control that when I got to work, like, let's say I'm standing and I'm writing up a receipt for a customer, something could happen, and I'm always paying attention to everything that's
Yeah.
going on. So something could happen, and I'm like, I cannot focus.
Yeah.
I can no longer multitask. I can't even focus on the task at hand.
Yep.
So I would, in the middle of writing it, I would excuse myself, walk away, and just,
Like go in your
yeah,
mind.
yeah. And I'd come back 10 minutes
common.
later, right? And I'm like, okay, one step at a time.
Yeah.
Debilitating.
That happens to me. I think with work, I have a hard time focusing.
Wow.
Or if I just have anxiety in general. Sometimes I don't really know. You're saying you know your triggers. I think sometimes I don't know mine, which sucks because I kind of don't realize I'm anxious or nervous at some point. But I see it throughout my work day, or I'm like trying to sit down and focus on my computer, and my eyes are shifting. I'm like looking at my phone. I'm looking around the house. I'm like, oh, I should go clean something, or like like.
Wait, is it anxiety or is it like ADHD?
It's definitely a form of anxiety. So
Okay.
like when I'm anxious, I like to distract myself.
Okay.
I also, I talk a lot. I'm pretty like an open person.
yeah, you are.
But when I have anxiety, I close off and I get kind of silent in my head. And that's usually like the first instance where someone can be like, probably understand or pinpoint if I'm feeling some kind of way about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just random. Sometimes I'm just sitting there and I feel overwhelmed with like, oh, I have so many things to do today and I really don't need to do them all today. I'm just making myself feel anxious for no reason. I have a whole load of work to sit here, and then I just sit there like kind of like frozen, and I'm
Where
like,
to start?
I can't do anything.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then it affects me when I eat. If I'm anxious, I can't eat. Like it's weird. Like I love food. I eat a
Yeah.
lot of it.
Yeah.
Han makes fun
No,
of me
you
all
can
the
eat.
time.
You can eat.
But I think she knows when something's wrong because I'm just start like picking at my food. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "No, nothing. I'm fine." She's like, are you, "What's wrong? What's wrong, babe?" I was like, "No, I'm fine." I was like, "I don't know. I'm just like anxious right now."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Or like it's just and sometimes it's like nothing. I feel like it's your own sense of fear of impending doom that you can't shake or get out of. And I've always found it really interesting because it's kind of mind-blowing to me that it is something that's happening in your own body, and like you're feeling some kind of fear or anxiousness about something currently going on around you, but then everyone else around you is like feeling good and happy, and you're like, okay, well, they're fine, so maybe I should just kind of like rethink my thoughts a little bit. But it doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work like that.
Yeah. If anything, I don't necessarily know how to get rid of my anxiety. Working out helps, but I went through a phase of like not wanting to, or when I get off of a routine, I'm like, oh.
What do you do? What do you?
I need like something like high intensity to like really distract me.
Do you run or?
I tried running. I actually did like running, but it hurts my shins. I get shin splints all the time, so I had to stop.
Oh, so you actually run?
Yeah. Because I needed to like really work out to get out any kind of anxious feelings.
Right.
So when I would run, I would almost like sprint, like,
oh yeah,
just to get any kind of like weirdness that was in my mind or my body out. And it was really helpful. But that was like pre-pandemic. I did things like boxing or like spin class. Like those were certain classes I took.
I didn't know any of this. Okay, cool.
Yeah, they were fun for me, but it was definitely more of like a therapeutic thing because I realized I had so much anxiety, and I felt so good after just having like an hour of really high intense workouts.
So
I'd be like, okay,
what do you do now?
What I do now? I'm not as good as working out as I was. I think I'm more consistent.
I'm asking you to sort of be like a reminder, like these things help you.
Yeah.
So let's continue it, right?
I know.
Yeah.
I do light weightlifting at home, but pandemic's been hard because I actually really, and I enjoyed going to classes and having that time to myself because I think with anxiety, not a lot of people understand it or they don't have experience with it. And I used to be the same way. I have seen a lot of people in my family deal with anxiety, and I wasn't really sure how to like cope or help them. And I also wasn't really empathetic in a way, just not out
you
of,
didn't know.
Yeah, I just wasn't aware. And I feel like that's something you don't, with anxiety, I don't think you can be truly empathetic until you've like had an experience.
It, yeah.
Because it really is something like when I don't even remember the first time it really happened. I think it kind of gradually happened over time, but I remember getting to a point where I was like, oh, this sucks. Like,
yeah, it sucks.
You know, and like I didn't want to like project it out to, my friends or my family because I was like, oh, I'm being ridiculous. Like it's just in my head. Like I can figure it out, But so my outlet was to go and work out. And I'd be like, okay, this is one time. Like I know what I'm working out for. It wasn't even to be like physically fit. It was just purposely to have like a clear mind and head.
Yeah.
It worked, but then, pandemic will hit, and I've tried to find certain ways to help. But I think I'm a little bit more anxious now towards the 8 months into pandemic than I was in the beginning.
Really?
Yeah. It comes in waves. I think recently it's been a little bit more heightened. I get really bad sleep anxiety right now.
Meaning that you oversleep or you can't sleep?
I can't sleep. Okay. Or I'm like really tired and then I get in bed and then I'm just awake and my feet are shuffling, I'm like trying to take deep breaths and keeping Han awake.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so sorry. She's like, yeah, you need to talk about it.
You need to
talk about it
so I can get to sleep.
It's so funny. Or and I've been looking into different CBD products to help me sleep or just but I think it's hard right now. I kind of was thinking in terms of what I used to do pre-pandemic and how it was really helpful, but then I really don't know what to do now to help alleviate what I'm looking for because I haven't found an outlet in terms of working out even that helps me feel perfect or not perfect, but I can go about my day and feel kind of cool about it.
I mean, you just have to constantly adjust.
Yeah.
I think just kind of adjust. So I wanted to be completely honest coming on here. I didn't just snap out of my anxiety.
Yeah.
So I was really worried because it was so out of control that I thought, so this is my thinking, I was like, okay, there's something physically wrong with me. Maybe I have a brain tumor and something's blocking something in my brain because I just couldn't make sense because I couldn't do daily activities. I could not function.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, I need to contact my doctor. This is how I processed it. I need to contact my doctor and get a CAT scan because maybe they can detect that there's a tumor and that's
Yeah.
what's happening. And then I started to think, okay, what's going to happen to Tyler when I leave this earth? Who's going to take care of
Oh
him?
my gosh, that's a whole nother route of anxiety
Right?
there.
And like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not fulfilling my duties as a mother,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And then I talked to his father, right? And I'm like, okay, if something happens to me, I need you to like be on it. Like, you have to
Yeah.
take care of this child. You have to do a fucking good job. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And this is a guy who takes him every other week,
Yeah.
you know? I was like, no, this is your responsibility now. I'm like, I'm freaking out right
Yeah.
now, you know? And I had to be honest because if I don't tell people what's going on, nobody knows.
Yeah.
But I
That's something
kept
hard
it
to
hidden
learn.
from my parents. I didn't verbalize it, but they saw.
Yeah.
They knew, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, that something was wrong. They just didn't know what. And I didn't talk to them. I didn't talk to anybody in the house. I would try to participate in group activities by like watching TV with everybody, but I would be dead silent.
Yeah.
Wouldn't make a comment, wouldn't laugh.
just there.
I was just there,
Yeah.
but not there. I was physically there, but mentally not. And so my doctor had suggested to me, so there was my regular doctor, and then there is my therapist that I talk to. And then they suggested, you know, like maybe you should take medication.
Yeah.
So what you're experiencing is a level of anxiety and depression. And I'm like, I don't think that's it.
Yeah.
That can't be it. It's something else. I have a brain tumor or
Yeah.
something like that, you
It
know?
has to be easily fixable.
Right? I didn't know what it was. And I thought that it could never be fixed.
Yeah.
And they're like, just try this. So they put me on the lowest dose of Zoloft,
Okay.
which is an antidepressant and anti-anxiety
I didn't
medication.
know it was anti-anxiety.
So
Yeah.
yes,
I thought it was only an
just
antidepressant.
for
yeah.
depression. Yeah, no. So it's both, and I've always been really like against that
Yeah.
because I didn't want to. I didn't have any experience with it, first of all, and I didn't want to be addicted to it.
Yeah.
because
Or rely on it.
Rely on
Yeah.
it, reliant, you know. And so I said I don't want to do it. And I denied it for years.
Yeah.
You know, they suggested it a while back, and I denied it for years because I would go in and out of that state of mind.
Yeah.
But this time it was so bad because not only was it COVID
Yeah.
that triggered it, because it's already in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So COVID triggered it, and then we got into the resurgence of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And I remember mentioning it to
world is
John,
in a
you know,
terrible place.
right?
Yeah.
And then I mentioned it to John, and then we would constantly get into it, and he thought it was all him. He
Yeah.
thought it was just our relationship.
Oh.
Right? And he's
Yeah.
like, what's happening here? I was like,
Yeah.
it's not you. He goes, it has to be me, but it's not you.
That's
you know?
the hardest part to explain to people.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the littlest things would cause me anxiety. So his birthday was in June, and his friends reached out to me, hey, let's do something. And I got super anxious, and I was like, oh my God,
plan it.
what are we going to eat? What are we going to drink? And this is like the simplest
Yeah.
shit that I love to do,
Yep.
you know, and I started to become really standoffish. I was like, I
Like,
didn't know
can't
what to
help
do.
you.
I can't help you. Yeah. And then I started to look like a dick. It's like,
Yep.
okay, maybe she just doesn't want us to hang out with her.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the case at all,
Yeah.
you know? And so I got super anxious about it. And then July rolls around, and it was Tyler's birthday. And then I broke down.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what to do for him. And then so he took the reins.
Okay.
Were you with no, you weren't. When Han and them went.
No, I wasn't with you guys
Okay.
on that trip. Yeah.
Yeah. So Han and a few of the girls had gone
They were in Reno.
Reno,
Yeah,
Reno,
they were in
right?
Reno.
And then on the way home, they met up with us for Tyler's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And so John had set up near a lake somewhere in Sacramento,
Yeah.
like a little picnic and like a little barbecue. And they rolled by, and it was all him. He did all the planning. He got all the gifts, and I couldn't do anything.
That's really sweet.
Right. So prior to that week, because everything was kind of planned off the cuff, he had rented a boat, and he took Tyler and I out on the river.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to go. And he goes, just go with me, and just it'll be relaxing.
Yeah.
So as soon as we get out, I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like, I love
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Like, this is
The
great.
lead up to things sometimes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really relaxing. And we were out there for like all day. And then as soon as the boat docked, it started to come back. Right? So fast forward, I got on Zoloft, I want to say maybe like 2 months ago. And it was the lowest possible dose. And she would like, she said, we can go up in increments
Yeah.
slowly. I haven't had to go up.
It's working?
It's working. She goes, it takes sometimes for some people, it takes up to 2 months to take effect. It took 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And I just slowly started coming out of it.
Yeah.
And maybe after the first 2 weeks, I just completely snapped out of it.
That's crazy.
I was articulating my thoughts normally. I was able to multitask at work and just more than just function. I was thriving. It's mind-blowing,
How
you know?
did it make you feel after, I guess, denying it for so long and then finally kind of being like, okay, like, did you have any feelings towards that? Being like, oh, okay, I'm going to just do it.
It was so relieving because there's so much negative connotations to these medications because like I felt like I first of all reliant. I didn't want to be reliant on it, and second of all, it just looked bad.
Yeah.
Right? She's crazy. She needs to take meds.
It's like the stigma behind
The
it, though.
stigma.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. There's a stigma with it.
But
and
it's so normal.
It is.
And super common.
And I was thinking, I didn't know if it would make me a different person. And
oh, that's interesting.
my thought process was, if I take this medication, it's going to change my character and make me numb to things.
Yeah.
Not the case at all. It doesn't change me. It basically put me back to normal, to where I have my coping mechanism. So the way I described it to Nina and my friend Huyen, I spoke to them the most this time.
Yeah.
This time when it happened, I spoke to them the most and shared all of my feelings.
Yeah.
And the way I explained it to both of them was that, the term, the saying, you've lost your marbles. When people say you're going insane or you're going crazy, I've lost my marbles.
Yeah.
So the best way to describe it is, this is what I said to them. I go, it's like if you can imagine a box with marbles, but the marbles are running free. So they're like rolling around and being all crazy. That's how I was thinking. That's how
That's
out
a
of
great
control.
way to describe it, actually.
It makes sense, right? So that's how my brain worked. Like everything was just totally going crazy and I couldn't focus on anything. Whereas after I started taking the medication, the marbles were there in the box, but it's in a grid system where like each one of those marbles were in its own little home.
And you can cognitively go in and access each point.
There you go.
That sounds like a nice feeling.
Right? It's like, and it's not like anything's different other than it's gone back to normal. There was a sense of normality, and I could just have, what am I trying to say? So this is how, so my doctor says to me, she goes, so she reassured me, she goes, it's not going to change you. It's just that right now you don't have your coping mechanisms. This will give you your coping mechanisms back. So when things happen, you could figure out what to do versus not knowing what to do altogether.
Or feeling flustered kind of thing. Oh, interesting. I've never heard it described in that way before, I guess. I think the stigma behind it is pretty much but I also didn't know that Zoloft or any of those medications were also anti-anxiety. But I could see the marble situation and saying how just it's as simple as getting your coping mechanism back makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Because I guess that is kind of a form when something happens, or if I'm a pretty easygoing person, but if I have a plan, or if I have an expectation of how the day's gonna go, and then something happens and it kind of falls apart, then that's when I get anxious and short-tempered or just kind of flustered. I'm like, okay, everything is out of place, but also it's okay.
That's that's a little almost obsessive compulsive a little bit too.
Yeah,
I'm naming all these things 'cause it's all I know, but
I think in terms of my brain and how it functions, I think when I get anxious, I get headaches, I get nauseous.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's it's kind of a
holy,
where I have to just kind of sit down and okay, I just need to not do anything for 10 minutes and just kind of recollect my thoughts and just be okay, it's okay if it's not going the way you thought
so
it was.
So it is debilitating for you too, then.
I don't think I feel like I'm pretty high functioning in mine. That's a great addition. I feel like I'm more.
She's back.
I was waiting for it. I think I'm more high functioning when I'm feeling anxious. I kind of just pace and
high functioning mean you're
Yeah, I have to like go, like be on the go or like
Okay.
do
Got
something.
it.
So when I relax, it's kind of hard for me to just like sit and have a chill day or, you know, kind of if I just am bored or like I need to constantly be doing something or else my mind races.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be opposite sometimes too. Sometimes I can have a really great chill day and then like I said, I'll lay down and my mind, how you describe marbles going everywhere, that's a great way to describe my brain at nighttime. I can be exhausted and then I'll just lay in bed and I feel like I'm thinking about something over here, counting random things over here, like, you know, thinking about the worst possible outcome of anyone's life over here. Like,
That's anxiety.
What's
for
going to
sure.
happen if, you know,
Wow.
what's going to happen tomorrow with the pandemic? Like, you know, I think I have a lot of, some of my anxiety, I think, is also like, it kind of goes into a point where I think something bad is going to happen to the people I love. And that comes from a sense of losing my stepdad a few years ago.
Right.
And it was really sudden. And I definitely know that is one of my triggers. That's probably the only one I'm pretty aware of. Like, if, Han and I talked about this a few months ago. It's like, it used to be really bad. Like, if I didn't hear from my mom for like 5 hours, I'd be like, are you okay?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I haven't heard from you. Like,
John's
it
the
was,
same way.
it's really bad. Thank
You get closer to the mic.
Wow. I'm not loud enough. That's awesome. Thank you.
first. But yeah, it used to be terrible. And it got to the point where maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I felt like it was a little bit of an obsession to figure out like and know where my loved ones were. And I honestly think that's probably where most of my anxiety came into play,
Okay.
was needing to be in control of what was happening around me.
Because you
then-
lost your stepdad
yeah,
suddenly.
and because it was so sudden and so unexpected.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of like, I was pretty like carefree and I didn't really think about those things. I was
Right.
like, oh, everyone's gonna be alive forever. Like I'm gonna have my parents around forever. And then bam, it just wasn't that way anymore. And I think it was pretty like eye-opening in terms of the acceptance of how life can change in a minute. And then also wanting to be okay with it, but then still be scared to lose someone else close to you.
Right.
But then that started trickling down into many aspects because I kept myself busy because I had anxiety. And then it just became like a full-blown problem that I was like only working and keeping myself like on certain tasks so I wouldn't think about how anxious I was. So when I'd stop, I'd get hit with this like wave of like overwhelming fear of
So I'm going to
nothing.
interject a little bit.
Yeah.
I think so. One of the things I learned was that you should try not to push it aside. So you need to sit with it.
Yeah.
As hard as it is, you were saying how you start making yourself busy so that you can kind of forget about it. As hard as it is, it's important for you to sit with your feelings.
Yeah.
Sit with and find out what your triggers were. So one of them is, you, like you said,
Yeah.
you recognize it, which is, you know, you have that fear of losing someone because your stepdad left so suddenly. That's a trigger.
Yeah.
So you have to try to sit with it
Yeah.
and not push it aside. And it probably could get worse before it gets better, kind of situations. But that's one of the things I learned is you have to really let yourself process these emotions so that you could better cope
Yeah.
versus trying to keep yourself busy so that you could not think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because that brings a whole different kind of breakdown later on.
Yeah, but you got to let yourself do it.
Yeah.
Though. You got to go through it. So, so Huyen is trying to call. I have my phone on silent, but like, she and I share all my thoughts with her because she can relate, and it's easier to talk to the people who know the feeling.
Yeah.
And I know that two wrongs don't make a right, and
Yeah.
it's really hard when we're both going through it to talk to each other. And we talked to each other very little during this period of time. But after we came out of it, we're like, dude, what the fuck? You
Well, I
know?
think it's also nice to talk to someone, even if you're not really helping each other in any way. I think it's just kind of nice to know you're not the only one
Yeah.
going through it, and
Yeah.
like you have someone who they don't even have to say anything that makes you feel better. You're just like, I get it, and you're like, you actually know they get it, and it makes it a little bit more comforting, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just to be like, okay, I'm not crazy.
Is it okay to call her?
Yeah, call her.
Okay.
Special guest.
Special guest.
No.
Good morning, TT Sex Toys. How can I help you?
Oh my
gosh, thank you so much for calling me back. Okay, so my recent purchase, there seems to be a problem with it.
Maybe it's batteries. Did you try
reaching.
change batteries?
No. It's not quite reaching to the place I need it.
Okay.
It definitely hits different, but I don't know if it's a good difference.
What up, woman?
What's going on?
So joining us today is my friend Huyen. She's calling in from Southern California, Santa Monica area. And hey, so we've spent the last like 45 minutes talking about, Kathy and I talking about our anxieties. And would you like to share something? I know you don't have no idea like what we've been talking about, but I was just saying how like you and I had both gone through it for different reasons, obviously, and that we just lost touch and weren't really communicating during that time. But after the fact, like when it was all over, it was just like we had a what the fuck moment, like, dude, this is what we've been through. And it's really helpful, we were saying, to talk to people who know what it's like. Yeah.
I'm actually really glad. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
I'm actually really happy to hear that you guys are talking about it, because there's just so much shaming going on about mental illness. Mm-hmm. Things, and I
Dude, you're just saying mental illness right there. It's like, I don't want to be known to have a mental illness.
I was like, oh no.
I mean,
It's like personal shame too when you think about it. Yeah.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
It's a stigma.
It is a stigma.
Okay, continue.
It's a stigma, just like anything.
Yeah.
We don't want to be known for what. But I guess that's probably lead me right into talking about shadow work. Shadow journaling.
You had mentioned that to me. Let's talk about that. Okay, shadow journaling. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's something by a philosopher named Carl Jung, and he spoke about incorporating our shadow selves into our consciousness. Because a lot of times it's something that lives in our unconscious. It's all these feelings and traits that we deem as like poor, bad qualities. Rage, anger, jealousy, envy, fear, anxiety, stress, like all those things. Mm-hmm. And they're a part of us. They're a part of us as human beings. And since I'm a person who I feel like naturally suppresses, these kind of feelings, I'm working on really incorporating them and integrating them into my consciousness so that I can be my authentic self.
So you're saying, well, a lot of times people, there's like that false sense of happiness or positivity where, if you're feeling sad or mad, people are like, no, you got to be positive. You can't be negative.
What is it? Toxic positivity?
Is it?
Yeah, that's what people have been calling
it.
It
is toxic because you have to be able to sit with those feelings and acknowledge that those are all important elements. Like there has to be a frame of reference. Like you can't be really happy unless you've experienced sadness, or else you don't know what that happiness is. You're just content. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to look
Yeah.
at it, actually.
Extreme highs and the lowest lows. I'm actually really glad that I have felt personally really, really low.
Yeah.
Really,
really low.
Really low. So, I feel like it gives me, more perspective, and therefore, however low I have felt, I can feel
super
on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I need to do like a sound effect on that.
Or whatever it is you want, but I love it.
Yeah. Oh man, extreme highs, dude. Extreme highs, but extreme lows. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's a shadow journaling. Okay?
Wait, I lost it. Wait, what shadow journaling again?
So I'll just give you like a basic rundown of what I do normally. I set my phones, all devices, and everything aside, and usually sitting just with myself, very quietly, and I write about everything that's on my mind, anything that comes to mind, and it's not really about happy stuff. It's about all these feelings that I have about maybe a particular situation, a person, a thing, whether it's like work, relationships, how I feel about myself. And I write without judgment. Like, I just write, and I scribble. And it's not really for anyone to read or even for myself to read over again.
Oh.
It lets me get all these feelings out that society would deem as like unacceptable.
Wait, Huyen,
Or
that's
I would
interesting
feel
that you said you write without judgment, but it's maybe part of it is because you know nobody else is reading, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Nobody else is reading it. You can always go back to read it if you want, but I really don't go back to read it. So it looks like chicken scratch. It's just like lines scribbled on the paper, but my thoughts are free flowing, and I'm holding nothing back. I mean, these are some vicious, crazy, insane, dark thoughts. You know, that I feel like need to get out, so that in my waking life, I can just, it can be a part of me, if that makes sense. But a part of me that I acknowledge and that I know is there, but I've already practiced and exercised it with myself, so it's not coming out in inopportune times.
Got it. Okay.
Do you save your pages that you write?
Do I save what I write?
Yeah.
Usually just in like a notebook, and then I toss it when it's full.
Oh, okay.
Sounds like you've written a lot.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I've ever filled up a notebook before.
That's what I'm saying.
If I find a piece of paper,
I need like a Post-it stack or something.
It like brings my anxiety and my stress down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's all the stuff you're holding inside, right?
Right.
It's not like a fear, like a known external danger that is actually going or could happen. You know, it's thought of something that may happen. You know, the unknown.
Yep. Fear of the unknown.
You know, speaking of journaling, I had a chat with my parents a couple days ago, and I was saying how in the morning before work, I like to journal. And my mom asked me, is it the same journal you wrote in when you were in high school? And in my head, I was like, how do you know how to journal in high school?
Parents, man,
What
know
the
everything.
Fact, man.
We think like our parents don't know things.
They know.
They've lived a lot longer than us.
No, absolutely. There's a level of wisdom there that we have not yet achieved.
Yep.
But I still feel like they don't understand us. I'm generalizing. I'm putting you in it too. So that's called shadow journal. Hey, why is it called shadow journaling? Where did the word shadow come from? Shadow for me, it's like, oh, I get it. Hold on. Tell me if I'm right. So when I think of a shadow, it's like, you know, it's your shadow. Wait, hold on. That doesn't make sense. So it's your shadow, but it's like, it's a part of you, but it's like a darker part of you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's you, but it's a dark silhouette of you.
Yes.
Got it.
Like, it's all those things. But, you know, because there's such a stigma around all this stuff, we just feel like oh,
The
it's
bad
so
parts of
bad.
you, the quote unquote bad parts of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you really can't become whole in your authentic self unless you integrate all parts of you.
It's true.
Agreed.
And for me, I can say that I'm typically a very easygoing, diplomatic person.
Yeah, she totally is. You'll meet her.
You know, but I think I'm pretty chill and even keeled.
Super.
It's just, yeah, but you know, but then.
It doesn't mean that you don't encompass all those other things that people
Yeah, I
deem
have
negative.
all those
Yeah,
things.
totally.
And
You're human.
Sometimes I have a hard time like showing them when they could actually be very, very beneficial to me. You know, as far as being more assertive, holding my ground, being upset and showing it when I should be.
That makes sense.
You know, speaking up for myself, things like that.
Maybe because you try not to look like an asshole, but you should be.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being an
Nothing at all.
asshole sometimes, you know?
That's a good way to put it. I feel like it's like you don't, I kind of get in that point too where I'm like, oh, I don't really want to, I feel like,
Portray yourself in that.
yeah, and it's like, oh, I think I'd just rather go do something by myself for a minute or just like collect my thoughts alone before I reach that point. But I do also think, in my mind, I think when I talk about it more now than I ever did before. but it is like a burden factor. You think someone's not going to understand you. So I immediately retreat and just like, oh, well, you probably wouldn't understand, so I'll just keep it to myself. But it's not necessarily the best way to approach it.
Right.
Because it is just basically denying a part that could actually have been really beneficial to you at that point.
Right.
But I wouldn't have known because I chose to just kind of be quiet about it.
And that's the thing, is that, you know, we could put it out there and it's just like it's up to them how they receive it, right? We can't control like how other people's perspective.
Yeah.
But you got to work on yourself and like make things work for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not being selfish. It's just about self-care,
Yeah.
taking care of yourself, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Huyen, I'm done talking to you. No, because
Sounds like a wonderful thing.
no, you realize that at some point you have to physically come on and like hang out and we can chat about stuff. I think Ruben and I had talked about making a trip to SoCal before COVID started. We were thinking of coming down and making our way down there and just like visiting friends and recording these pods. And you're on my list, dude.
You should do it.
Yeah.
Go to tour.
Yeah. Would
Go
love
to
to.
Titi.
Yeah. So we're
Okay, I think one bit I'll add.
Okay.
To the shadow journaling
Sure.
before I go. So it's not just to help, people like me who kind of will suppress these things and not show them all the time, but it will also even help with somebody who, may need anger management or something like that, because they can really write about all these feelings that they're feeling that they typically would not be able to control or contain.
Okay. So get it out in the journal versus
Blow
like
at people.
blowing up in other people's
Yeah.
faces, basically, right?
And just have time to just reflect on it and think about it with yourself.
Right.
Because, just a different outlet, basically.
Right. Are you speaking to someone in particular, or are you just talking in general?
Oh, I'm speaking
case
in
you're
general
listening.
and to a lot of people in particular.
Yeah. Okay, but we won't name any names.
Just in case anyone is listening.
There's that cackle. All right, I'm being a dick. I'll stop. Okay.
Hey, Kathy, it's nice to meet you.
Via phone. I know, nice to meet you too. I'm sure we'll meet in person
Yeah,
someday.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Huyen. I'll talk to you later, babe. Love you.
All right.
Okay, bye. Shadow journaling.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is just journaling.
I tried journaling once. I wasn't a fan. It wasn't for me.
No, huh?
Yeah. I like,
I'd like to address something real quick.
Okay. But it's journaling, but interesting because it's focusing on all the bad stuff.
yeah.
Right? Getting it all out there
Yeah.
so you don't do it to other people.
It is a good concept though. I mean, I remember trying it. I was like, oh, I'm just going to see because, I mean, my family likes to journal and a lot of people who like to journal.
My brother goes in there. Okay. So, I don't know, is there anything you wanted to add, Kathy?
No, I mean, I hope that talking about anxiety gets easier.
Yeah.
I think in terms of where I was like 4 years ago to now, I think I'm a lot more open about it. So you said like you had no idea.
Right.
I think I'm trying to work on
And-
expressing myself and not in terms of I have my shit together. Like
Nobody has their shit
Yeah,
together.
I'm
Anybody
like-
who claims to have their shit together
Probably doesn't.
does not.
Yeah.
It's and so the main reason why I wanted to talk about anxiety was to sort of normalize it.
Yeah.
So normalize talking about it and make it so that somebody out there has to be able to relate to this.
Yeah.
And the whole stigmatism with medication.
Yeah.
Like I want that to go away, and it'll never go away, but
Yeah.
it'll hit home to somebody.
Yeah.
To know that it's okay if you do
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Because otherwise you're going to live your life just like in a constant state of fear.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
that's not fun.
It's not
Yeah.
fun. And I needed that to kind of like get me back into a sense of normality where I could actually function.
Yeah. Be
And I know
yourself.
it sounds extreme, but I could not function.
I don't think it sounds extreme. I think it just sounds accurate for that amount of
That's because
anxiety.
you
or fear.
understand
Yeah.
me. Yeah, you know what it feels
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of my family members have it like even worse than I have ever had. And so I think I've seen, like how you're saying, the lowest of lows, highest of highs. I've seen people who have it and are like extremely high functioning and great all the time, and then not so great when they're alone. And then I've had family members who are pretty open about it and like really low in front of all of you, and you just don't really know what to do to help them. So
and the other thing I wanted to say is, just because the medication has helped me help ground me and like let me focus doesn't mean that my problems go away.
Yeah.
So what's important
That's a good
is,
thing to highlight, actually.
right?
Yeah.
What's important is, now that I have my wits, that I try to work on the things or the triggers that got me there to begin with.
Yeah. So
Right.
it allows you to kind of collect your thoughts on
Yes.
certain things.
Yes.
Nice. I guess I didn't really think about it that way. So that's
Because it doesn't fix
point.
your problems.
Yeah, it just makes you more aware of how in getting what was it? Your coping
My
mechanisms
coping
back.
mechanisms, yeah. So, yeah, like little tiny things, like
Yeah.
even what I was going to have for lunch, I was freaking out.
Yeah, that sucks.
That
Yeah.
sucks.
Or just like, oh, it's almost lunchtime, but I have to do this and I have to do this, and what am I going to cook?
Oh, it
I'm
was
just gonna
bad.
eat a snack or not eat at all.
It was bad. Yeah.
Oh man, anxiety is the worst. I am very thankful that Hannah's empathetic towards
Yeah.
it, and she understands in her own way
Yeah.
in terms of how to make me or be present. She doesn't really try to make me feel better, which actually I really appreciate, because that was like one thing I guess this is my point. When I talk about anxiety with someone, I'm not really looking for someone to be like
A solution.
yeah, and I think that is the common like misconception when you're talking to someone about it, is like they think you're looking for advice, but sometimes you're just like, I just need to tell you I feel anxious, and then I immediately feel better.
Oh, okay.
And I think when it's so easy to talk to Han about it, because she's just like,
She'll let you speak.
yeah, and then she's like, oh, okay. Like she just is like, it's kind of like a mutual understanding where I can just like blurt something out. She'll be like, oh, okay. and I'm like, okay, great, thanks. I feel good now.
Did you ever have to communicate that to her? Like, this is what I need, or she just naturally knew not to speak?
No, I feel like it came kind of natural to her.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. No, you really are.
I feel like I don't think her and I ever really had to sit down. And I think there was one time where I was like trying to just explain myself, but it wasn't even a sense of what I need. I was like, oh, like I get anxious sometimes, so sometimes I might just start blurting things out, and then I'll feel better.
Yeah.
Like, or if we're doing something new, or just like I'm gonna be anxious about it. So if I get quiet or weird, that's probably what's happening. Like it's more of like an expectation for her to see, like, oh, if I'm shutting down, that's probably what's happening. But no, I think she's handled it like pretty well.
That's awesome.
If anything, I just feel bad that I keep her up at night, but
That you what?
I keep her up at night when I have sleep anxiety, but I'm working on it.
Because you're fidgety and stuff?
I'm like fidgety, like tossing and turning, and she's
Yeah.
like, oh, are you okay? I'm like, I'm sorry. I feel so bad. And then I'm like, and then I finally fall asleep, and she's like tired in the morning. I was like, oh man. But you know what? It's okay. We'll get there.
Did you want to say anything, Ruben? Or? Okay.
But yeah.
Awesome. So, what day is it today again?
Saturday. the
We did it Friday
14th.
last time.
Yeah.
That's why, yeah. So happy Saturday. Thank you for coming, Kathy.
Thanks for having me.
It's been lovely.
I only wake up early for people I care about.
She cares about me! I knew that. I'm so happy we did this, because I really thought, I was done. Remember, Ruben, I told you, I was like, I don't know if
Yeah.
I'll ever want to, I have no desire.
Yeah. Well,
But
I hope this kind of sparked something
Oh no,
for you to
for
get
sure.
back. Yeah.
It's only because like I was going through it, you
Yeah.
know? It's like nothing was appealing to me at all,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah. Yay!
Yeah, we did it with coffee.
I know! And,
And water.
water. All right.
All right. That's it.
Sayonara. Yay!
Yay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ooh.